70% of drivers are being scammed at the pump every single week, and the people running the scam are counting on you never figuring it out. 17 fuel scams exist that oil companies, dealerships, and gas stations have quietly normalized into everyday driver behavior. Number 17 is happening to you right now at every single fill-up. Number 1, it's the scam that petroleum industry insiders privately laugh about while publicly defending it with a straight face. Let's kick things off. Scam 17. The premium fuel power myth. Walk up to any gas pump and the psychology's already working against you. The standard octane is labeled regular. The highest octane is labeled premium, ultimate, or V-power, usually coated in gold or sleek black marketing materials. The implication is obvious. If you want your car to run at its absolute best, if you want maximum power and the best possible fuel economy, you need to buy the expensive stuff. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of petroleum chemistry that costs drivers billions of dollars a year. Octane is not a measure of power. It is not a measure of energy density. Octane is exclusively a measure of fuel's resistance to premature detonation, commonly known as engine knock. High compression engines in luxury cars and sports cars require high octane because they squeeze the air-fuel mixture incredibly hard before the spark plug fires. If they use low octane, the pressure alone causes the fuel to explode early, damaging the pistons. If you drive a standard commuter car engineered for 87 octane, putting 93 octane in the tank does absolutely nothing. It does not clean your engine better. It does not give you more horsepower. It does not increase your fuel mileage by a single inch. Your engine simply burns the expensive fuel exactly the same way it burns the cheap fuel. You are paying an extra 80 cents a gallon for a chemical resistance your engine physically cannot utilize. But while the gas pump relies on psychological marketing, the internet relies on something far more insidious. Prepare yourself for the ultimate piece of plastic snake oil. Scam 16, the OBD2 plug-in tuner. If you spend any time on automotive social media, you have seen the advertisements. A sleek, brightly colored plastic box with a computer chip graphic on the front. The advertisement promises that if you simply plug this device into the diagnostic port under your dashboard, it will hack your engine control unit, rewrite the fuel mapping, and instantly give you 30% better fuel economy. They sell for $30 to $50. They have thousands of 5-star reviews. They are completely, structurally, and functionally fraudulent. Automotive engineers and hackers have cracked these devices open on test benches. When you break apart the plastic shell, you do not find a sophisticated microprocessor. You do not find data transmission lines. You find a single printed circuit board containing absolutely nothing but a resistor and a blinking LED light. The device does not communicate with your vehicle's computer. It lacks the physical hardware to even send a data signal. The only thing it draws from your diagnostic port is a tiny amount of 5-volt power to make the green light blink, giving you the illusion that it is processing complex algorithms. The entire product is an empty plastic shell designed to harvest your desperation. If this just saved you $50, hit that subscribe button right now. We are exposing the aftermarket industry's darkest secrets, and we need your help to spread the truth. Speaking of saving money, let us talk about a habit you probably do every single time you visit the gas station. It feels like you are getting every last drop, but you are actually setting yourself up for a catastrophic repair bill. Scam 15. Topping off the tank. You are standing at the pump. The nozzle clicks off, signaling that the tank is full, but the dollar amount on the screen says $39.10. Your obsessive-compulsive instinct takes over. You squeeze the handle again, clicking it 3, 4, 5 times, trying to force exactly enough fuel into the pipe to make it an even $40. Stop doing this immediately. Modern vehicles are equipped with a highly sensitive piece of emissions equipment called an evaporative emissions control system, or EVAP. Gasoline expands and turns into a highly volatile vapor. To prevent those vapors from escaping into the atmosphere and creating smog, Your car has a charcoal canister hidden near the gas tank. This canister is designed to capture and store gasoline vapors, later routing them back into the engine to be burned safely. It is engineered exclusively for vapor. When you top off your tank and force liquid fuel up the filler neck, that liquid gasoline overflows directly into the EVAP lines and floods the charcoal canister. The liquid completely destroys the charcoal element. Suddenly, your check engine light comes on. You cannot pass your state emissions test. You take the car to the dealership and they hand you an $800 repair bill to replace the ruined EVAP system. You caused hundreds of dollars in damage just to squeeze an extra 40 cents of fuel into your car. But what about the physical temperature of the fuel itself? Your grandfather probably passed down this next piece of advice, and while the physics were sound 50 years ago, today it is nothing but a fairy tale. Scam 14. Morning fuel density. The myth goes like this. You should only buy gasoline at 5 in the morning before the sun comes up. Because the ambient air is cold, the gasoline is cold. Cold liquids are denser than warm liquids. Therefore, a gallon of cold morning gas contains more combustible energy than a gallon of hot afternoon gas. You get more fuel for your money. In a high school physics classroom, this logic is perfectly sound. In the real world of modern infrastructure, it is completely irrelevant. Gas stations do not store their fuel in above-ground tanks baking in the midday sun. They store thousands of gallons of gasoline in massive, double-walled, concrete-encased steel tanks buried deep underneath the pavement. At that depth below the frost line, the temperature of the surrounding Earth remains incredibly stable, usually hovering around 55 degrees Fahrenheit all year round. Whether it is 3 in the morning during a blizzard or 3 in the afternoon during a heat wave, the physical temperature of the fuel sitting in that subterranean tank fluctuates by barely a fraction of a degree. By the time the fuel travels up the insulated pipe and out of the pump nozzle, the thermal expansion difference is so microscopically small that you might gain a teaspoon of extra energy per 20 gallons. You are losing more sleep waking up early than you are saving in fuel costs. But if you think manipulating temperature is absurd, wait until you see how the aftermarket tries to manipulate the subatomic structure of the fuel itself. Scam 13. The magnetic fuel aligner. Browse the back pages of any automotive magazine or questionable online marketplace, and you will find the magnetic fuel saver. It is a small, heavy metal clamshell device containing 2 neodymium magnets. The instructions tell you to strap it to the outside of your rubber fuel line, right before the fuel rail. The marketing copy is usually filled with pseudo-scientific jargon about ionizing hydrocarbons. They claim that as the fuel passes through the intense magnetic field, the clustered fuel molecules are fractured and forced into perfectly aligned straight rows. This supposed alignment allows oxygen to bond more easily, resulting in a cleaner, more efficient burn and 20% better gas mileage. This is chemical nonsense. Gasoline is a non-polar hydrocarbon. It has absolutely zero magnetic properties. Passing a magnet over gasoline has the exact same physical effect as passing a magnet over a block of wood. Absolutely nothing happens. The molecules do not align. They do not fracture. They do not ionize. The only thing the magnet successfully attracts is the money out of your wallet. The Federal Trade Commission has repeatedly sued the manufacturers of these devices for blatant fraud, forcing them to issue millions in refunds. Yet, under new company names, they continue to pop up online every time gas prices rise. If magnetic fields cannot save your fuel, maybe altering the airflow can. Our next device was a staple of late-night infomercials in the 2000s, and it fundamentally misunderstands how an engine breathes. Scam 12. The air intake vortex generator. You have seen the commercials. A piece of stamped sheet metal twisted into a stationary fan blade. You slide it inside your rubber air intake tube, right behind the air filter. The pitch claims that as the engine sucks in air, this metal device forces the air into a violent, spinning tornado. This swirling vortex of air supposedly travels all the way down into the cylinders, mixing the fuel more aggressively and unlocking hidden horsepower and fuel economy. It sounds incredible. It is physically impossible. Between your air intake tube and the engine cylinders sits the throttle body, the intake manifold plenum, and the individual intake runners. By the time air travels through those complex, sharply angled aluminum passages, any swirling motion created by a metal fan in the intake tube has completely dissipated. But it gets much worse. Internal combustion engines are giant air pumps. Their efficiency depends on smooth, unrestricted laminar airflow. When you shove a piece of jagged, stamped metal directly into the intake tract, you are creating a massive physical restriction. You are actively choking the engine. Instead of generating a magical tornado, the device creates chaotic turbulence and drag, confusing the mass airflow sensor and forcing the engine computer to dump extra fuel into the mix to compensate for the bad readings. You pay $30 to intentionally decrease your horsepower and lower your fuel mileage. If you are enjoying this teardown of aftermarket lies, hit the like button so the algorithm knows to push real automotive education. Because our next scam requires you to play chemist in your own driveway, and the results are explosive. Scam 11, the water-powered car kit, also known as hydrogen fuel cell, kits, or HHO generators. During the 2008 financial crisis, when gas prices shattered records, desperate drivers began installing literal mason jars full of water and baking soda under their hoods. The system wires metal plates inside the jar directly to your car's battery. The electrical current runs through the water, separating the hydrogen and oxygen molecules through electrolysis. A vacuum hose sucks this hydrogen gas directly into your engine intake, promising to cut your fuel consumption in half because the car is now partially running on water. The chemistry of electrolysis is real. You can indeed separate hydrogen from water, but the physics of automotive energy systems makes this entirely useless. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. To break the chemical bonds of water, your car's alternator has to work incredibly hard to generate the massive electrical current required. When the alternator works harder, it creates massive physical drag on the engine belt. The engine has to burn significantly more gasoline just to spin the heavy, loaded alternator. The amount of energy you spend burning extra gasoline to power the electrolysis process is always, without exception, vastly greater than the tiny amount of combustible energy provided by the trickling hydrogen gas. It is a perpetual motion machine fantasy. You end up burning more fuel, destroying your alternator from the constant electrical strain, and risking a catastrophic hydrogen explosion under your hood if the safety valves fail. Do not put a science fair project in your engine bay, and absolutely do not pour our next item into your gas tank, even though forum mechanics swear by it. Scam 10, acetone, additive chemistry. Browse deep into old hypermiling forums, and you will find a persistent, dangerous myth. The secret to ultimate fuel economy, they claim, is walking into a hardware store and buying a tin of pure acetone. They advise pouring 3 ounces of industrial acetone into every 10 gallons of gasoline. The theory is that acetone drastically reduces the surface tension of the gasoline. When the fuel injector sprays the gas into the cylinder, the lowered surface tension allows the fuel to instantly vaporize into a perfectly fine mist, burning with ultimate efficiency. The theory about surface tension is partially true. The reality of what happens to your car is a nightmare. Acetone is one of the most aggressive industrial solvents on the planet. It is designed to melt plastics, dissolve adhesives, and completely strip heavy paints. Modern automotive fuel systems are packed with delicate synthetic rubber O-rings, specialized plastic fuel pump housings, and composite fuel lines. When you introduce raw acetone into this ecosystem, it immediately attacks the soft components. The rubber seals inside your expensive fuel injectors dry out, crack, and fail. The plastic housing of your in-tank fuel pump becomes brittle and shatters. You might gain a fraction of a mile per gallon in theoretical vaporization efficiency, but you will spend $2,000 replacing your entire fuel delivery system when the acetone eats it from the inside out. Leave the acetone in the paint shop. Let us move away from the engine and focus on the pump itself. There is a deeply ingrained behavioral scam that people perform every day, thinking they are outsmarting the oil companies. Scam 9, the slow pump vapor myth. You're at the gas station, and the driver next to you is gently holding the pump handle, barely squeezing the trigger, letting the fuel trickle into the tank at an agonizingly slow pace. If you ask them why, They will proudly tell you they are beating the system. The myth states that if you squeeze the handle all the way and pump gas at maximum speed, the violent rushing liquid creates excessive agitation and fuel vapor. The vapor recovery system built into the pump nozzle supposedly sucks all that valuable vapor right back into the gas station's underground tank, meaning you are paying for fuel that the station steals back from you. Pumping slowly, they claim, prevents agitation and ensures every drop of liquid stays in your tank. This is a complete misunderstanding of modern fluid dynamics and pump engineering. Modern gas pumps are rigorously calibrated and inspected by the Department of Weights and Measures. The internal metering system measures the exact volume of liquid passing through the hose, regardless of velocity. Furthermore, the vapor recovery systems on pump nozzles were designed to capture expanding atmospheric fumes to prevent smog, not to vacuum liquid fuel back into the reservoir. Pumping slowly does not bypass the meter. It does not magically condense vapors into liquid. The only thing you are accomplishing is wasting 15 minutes of your life standing in the cold and backing up the line of cars waiting behind you. Squeeze the handle. Let the machine do its job. Speaking of doing a job, what about the expensive chemical cocktail sitting right next to the cash register? Scam 8. The Every Fill-Up Injector. Cleaner walk into any auto parts store or gas station, and there is an entire wall dedicated to brightly colored bottles of fuel injector cleaner and fuel system treatments. The labels feature fiery explosions and promise restored power, eradicated carbon, and massive boosts in fuel economy. Many drivers make it a religious habit to dump a $10 bottle of this fluid into their tank every single time they fill up. They are throwing their money into an incinerator. Modern gasoline from top-tier stations is heavily mandated by federal law to contain aggressive, highly effective detergent packages. Every single time you pump gas from a reputable station, you are already flushing your fuel system with powerful cleaning agents designed specifically to prevent carbon buildup and keep injector panels spotless. Adding an aftermarket bottle of cleaner to an already clean system does absolutely nothing. The detergents in the bottle have no carbon to dissolve. They simply pass through the combustion chambers and burn up. These bottled additives are strictly diagnostic tools. If you bought a neglected 20-year-old farm truck that has been running on contaminated, stale fuel and has a confirmed clogged injector, a concentrated bottle of cleaner might help break down the heavy varnish. But for a modern daily driver running on top-tier fuel, adding a bottle at every fill-up is a complete scam. You are paying $10 to clean something that is not dirty. If you want to keep your engine running perfectly, check your air filter. But do not fall for the next myth because the rules of the game changed 30 years ago. Scam 7. The dirty air filter MPG myth. Every quick lube shop in the country uses the same tactic. You go in for a simple oil change. 10 minutes later, the technician walks into the waiting room holding your engine air filter. It looks slightly gray and dusty. They look you in the eye and say, "Your filter is dirty. It is choking the engine and killing your gas mileage. For $30, we can replace it and get your fuel economy back." You agree because it sounds logical. A breathing engine needs clean air to burn fuel efficiently, right? That logic died in 1990. In the era of carbureted engines, a dirty air filter absolutely destroyed fuel economy. The carburetor relied on physical vacuum pressure. If the filter was clogged, the vacuum pulled harder on the fuel jets, sucking way too much raw gas into the engine and ruining the air-fuel ratio. But you do not drive a carbureted car. You drive a vehicle with computerized electronic fuel injection. Your intake system uses a mass airflow sensor. It actively measures the exact, precise volume and density of oxygen entering the engine thousands of times a second. If your air filter is dirty and restricts the airflow, the computer instantly detects the lack of oxygen. It responds by perfectly reducing the amount of fuel sprayed by the injectors, maintaining a flawless, highly efficient air-fuel ratio. A dirty air filter on a modern car will reduce your maximum horsepower when you floor the pedal because the engine physically cannot pull in enough air. But it will absolutely not change your fuel economy. Change your filter when it is legitimately clogged to restore your passing power, but never let a lube tech tell you it is costing you gas money. Let us move from the engine down to the pavement. The tire industry has a premium scam that preys on your desire for perfect efficiency. Scam 6. The nitrogen tire fill. When you buy a new set of tires, the salesman will inevitably offer you an upgrade. For an extra $40 to $60, they will purge the regular air out of your new tires and fill them with pure laboratory-grade nitrogen, sealing them with a little green valve stem cap. The sales pitch is highly convincing. Nitrogen molecules are physically larger than oxygen molecules, meaning they will not seep out through the rubber as quickly. This keeps your tire pressure perfectly stable, which reduces rolling resistance and maximizes your fuel economy. Furthermore, nitrogen does not contain water vapor, preventing internal pressure fluctuations when the tires get hot. It sounds like aerospace engineering. It is completely unnecessary for a passenger car. Let us look at the atmosphere we breathe. The standard air you get for free at any gas station compressor is already 78% nitrogen. When you pay $50 for a nitrogen fill, you are merely paying to displace the remaining 22% of oxygen. The microscopic difference in pressure stability over a 6-month period between regular air and pure nitrogen is practically unmeasurable in a street tire. Formula One race cars and commercial Boeing aircraft use pure nitrogen because they operate at extreme, terrifying temperatures where moisture expansion can cause a catastrophic blowout. You are driving a Honda Civic to the grocery store. Check your tire pressure once a month with a cheap gauge and fill it with free air. The nitrogen upgrade is a high-margin dealer scam that offers zero measurable return on investment in fuel savings. But while underinflated tires are bad, what happens when hypermilers take inflation to the extreme? Scam 5. The overinflation strategy. If low tire pressure creates drag and ruins fuel economy, the logical solution for many obsessive fuel savers is to pump the tires up as hard as rocks. The sidewall of a passenger tire usually lists a maximum cold pressure of 44 or 50 psi. Hypermilers will pump their tires to the absolute maximum limit, completely ignoring the manufacturer's recommended 32 psi listed inside the driver's door jamb. The tires become incredibly hard. The rolling resistance drops dramatically. The car glides down the highway effortlessly. They successfully gain 1 or 2 miles per gallon, and they completely ruin their vehicle in the process. When you overinflate a tire to 50 psi, the flexible tread completely bows outward. Instead of the entire width of the tire gripping the asphalt, only the very center strip of rubber makes contact with the road. This causes violent, accelerated wear down the center of the tire. You will completely destroy a $1,000 set of tires in half their expected lifespan. Furthermore, you drastically reduce your vehicle's traction in emergency braking situations, and the rock-hard tires transmit every single bone-jarring bump directly into the suspension, blowing out expensive shock absorbers and ball joints. The $50 a year you save in gasoline is instantly wiped out by a massive bill for new tires and suspension work. Stick to the door sticker. If you are enjoying this brutal honesty, let me know in the comments which one of these you have fallen for in the past. We have all been there. Now, let us talk about the fluids protecting your engine and a scam that promises zero friction. Scam 4. Teflon oil additives. Alongside the fuel injector cleaners on the auto parts store shelf sits the holy grail of chemical scams, the friction-reducing engine oil additive. These heavy, viscous fluids, often marketed under names containing slick or PTFE, promise to coat the internal metal components of your engine with a permanent, frictionless layer of Teflon. The claim is that the engine will spin so freely the parasitic drag will vanish, resulting in massive fuel economy gains and an engine that outlasts the body of the car. This is a catastrophic lie. PTFE, the chemical name for Teflon, is a solid. Automotive engines are engineered with incredibly tight tolerances, relying on heavily pressurized liquid oil to flow through microscopic oil galleys and lubricate the bearings. When you pour a bottle of suspended solid Teflon particles into your crankcase, those particles do not magically seek out the cylinder walls and paint them. The solids coagulate. They get trapped inside your oil filter, rapidly clogging it and forcing the filter into bypass mode, meaning dirty. unfiltered oil begins circulating through your engine. Worse, the solid particles build up inside the tiny oil galleys that feed your camshafts, starving the top end of the engine of lubrication. The chemical companies that manufacture pure PTFE have publicly stated for decades that it is not suitable for use in internal combustion engines. You are paying $20 to slowly choke your engine to death. High-quality synthetic motor oil already contains the exact chemical friction modifiers your engine was designed to use. Leave the Teflon on your frying pans. Let us shift to a debate that rages every summer, testing the limits of aerodynamics versus mechanical load. Scam 3. The windows down versus air conditioning debate. It is a hot July afternoon. You are cruising down the interstate. Your father's voice echoes in your head. Turn off the air conditioning. It burns too much gas. Roll the windows down. This advice was born in the 1970s, when primitive, heavy air conditioning compressors acted like boat anchors on weak, carbureted VV8 engines. Today, this advice is completely backwards when driving at highway speeds. When you roll your windows down while traveling at 70 miles per hour, your car turns into a giant parachute. The smooth, aerodynamic teardrop shape, engineered in a billion-dollar wind tunnel, is completely destroyed. High-pressure air violently enters the cabin and crashes into the rear window, creating massive aerodynamic drag. The engine has to burn significantly more fuel to fight through the heavy air and maintain 70 miles per hour. Conversely, modern air conditioning compressors are incredibly efficient. While they do place a small mechanical load on the engine, the fuel required to spin the compressor is vastly less than the fuel required to overcome the violent aerodynamic drag of open windows at high speeds. The proven threshold is 45 miles per hour. If you are driving slowly through a residential neighborhood, roll the windows down to save gas. But the moment you merge onto the highway, roll the glass up and hit the AC button. Your car will slip through the air and your wallet will thank you. But what if you try to outsmart the system by buying fuel that the government hasn't touched? Scam 2. The ethanol-free premium paradox. Almost all modern gasoline in North America is blended with 10% ethanol. Purists hate it. Ethanol is alcohol. It attracts moisture. It can degrade older rubber lines in vintage cars, and crucially, it contains slightly less combustible energy than pure, refined gasoline. Because of this, a niche market exists for ethanol-free or clear gasoline, typically sold at marinas or specific premium pumps. The hypermiling community loves ethanol-free gas. They track their mileage obsessively and proudly post screenshots proving that running pure, non-ethanol gasoline instantly gives them a 3 to 4% increase in fuel economy. The math is perfectly accurate. The energy density is higher. The financial logic is completely fraudulent. Because ethanol-free fuel is a specialty product not subsidized by agricultural mandates, gas stations charge a massive premium for it. You will typically pay 50 cents to a full dollar more per gallon for ethanol-free gas compared to standard E10 fuel. That is a 15 to 20% increase in the price of the fuel. You are paying 20% more money to gain a 3% increase in mileage. If you are putting ethanol-free gas in your lawnmower to prevent the carburetor from gumming up over the winter, you are a genius. If you are putting it in your Honda Accord commuter car to save money on your commute, you are failing basic mathematics. And now, we arrive at the absolute biggest, most aggressively pushed scam in the entire automotive world. This one is not sold in an infomercial. It is sold by a man in a polo shirt sitting behind a mahogany desk at your local dealership. Scam 1. The Fuel System Decarbonization Service. You bring your car in for its 30,000-mile scheduled maintenance. The service advisor looks at his computer screen, furrows his brow, and tells you it is absolutely critical that you perform a fuel induction and decarbonization service. He warns you that carbon buildup is choking your intake valves, ruining your fuel spray pattern, and severely degrading your gas mileage. He quotes you $250 for the service. Here is what actually happens in the service bay. The technician does not take your engine apart. They do not hand clean your valves. They take a $20 can of aerosol chemical solvent, usually seafoam or a proprietary equivalent, and hook it up to a vacuum line on your intake manifold. They start the engine, let it idle, and the vacuum sucks the fluid through the intake. A massive plume of thick white smoke billows out of your exhaust pipe. The technician will proudly point to the smoke and say, "Look at all that carbon burning off." That is a lie. The white smoke is simply the aerosol solvent violently burning up in the combustion chamber. It is a chemical reaction of the fluid itself, not your carbon disappearing. Furthermore, if your car has port fuel injection, which the vast majority of economy cars over the last 20 years use, your intake valves are constantly being washed clean by the high-pressure spray of detergent-rich gasoline every single time you drive. There is virtually no carbon buildup to begin with. The dealership induction service is the highest profit margin scam in the industry. It takes the technician 10 minutes of labor, uses $20 of chemicals, and charges you $250 to solve a problem that does not exist under the guise of saving you fuel money. Decline the service. Drive the car, keep your money. The automotive world is a minefield of pseudoscience and marketing psychology designed to separate you from your cash. But you don't have to be a victim. Which of these 17 scams absolutely blew your mind the most? Drop a comment below and let me know. If this deep dive saved you money, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this with someone who keeps buying those little plastic chips. I'll see you in the next one.